On June 23, 2020, Mayor Jamie Clary proposed an amendment to the city budget, on the second and final reading. Keep in mind that the budget had been discussed for the previous 3 months, but Mayor Clary chose to wait until the night before the final vote to submit his amendment. Mayor Clary proposed increasing the executive department's budget $115,000 and making $894,300 in cuts to other departments' budgets. The budget for the Hendersonville Fire Department took the brunt of Mayor Clary's proposed cuts. Fire Chief Scotty Bush was questioned by the alderman on how these cuts would impact the fire department's ability to operate and keep citizens safe.
Okay, I guess I would like to ask Chief Bush, the reduction in your training, how will that affect your department, Chief Bush?
Dramatically. We were cut $50,000. $75,000 is what he's given us. If it's okay, since you asked me a question, do I need to stay to travel and training, or is it open for me?
You need to answer the question from us, please.
I think I did answer the question.
Okay.
You cut us $50,000 in travel and training.
What will the net effect of that do to the department, Chief Bush?
Well, it'll affect what I can do for our 19 new recruits. It will affect what I can do for my leadership training for the folks that are beneath me. It will have a dramatic effect on all rank and file within my organization.
Chief Bush was asked additional questions.
Chief Bush, there was comment about maybe cutting your training by 50,000 under the mayor's plan. Is that the only cut?
No, sir. From the mayor's plan, the mayor's proposal, the fire department alone is suffering 62% of his cuts.
How much is that?
Roughly, his numbers tallied up to 550,200. Mine today tallied up to 560,786.
Does that impact you more than the loss of the training money?
Oh, yes, sir. I mean, it cuts my overtime. It cut 145,686 out of my overtime. He came up with $3,000 less than FICA, which that's on him and Robert. I don't know how that number got different from what it was. Total in all three asset lines, 643, 44, and 45. He's cut us 68,000 and 643, which is assets under 1,000. 644, he's cut us 19,600. 645, which is assets 7,000 and up, he cut us 70,000. Education, he cut from 40 to 18, so that's another 22. Emergency management, which is our code red, and then anything that deals with our dive team and our boat, he cut 17,000 from that. Our turnout gear, I cut myself to 60,000. For some reason, he gave us an extra 20 grand in that to 80. I don't know why. I mean, we talked in budget workshops and everything else that 60,000 would get us through this year. Gasoline and diesel, he cut 10 grand. I'm not sure why that was done. I mean, any of these cuts were not discussed with me. We had no discussions about anything. Building maintenance, he cut 70 grand. Equipment maintenance, which would be nozzles, hose, anything like that, he cut us 13,000. Radios, which we just bought into the new radio program, I only asked for 5,000. He cut 1,500 from that. Office and postage expense,
okay,
he cut some money there. Professional services, he cut 23,500. So he left us with 30 grand, and that covers physicals, ladder testing, pump testing, and that is relative to our ISO rating. Again, we could have avoided this. We had this conversation last year about cutting professional services, and here we are again talking about what is needed. I mean, I don't understand that.
2 years ago.
okay,
And then there's another 50 grand cut out of our travel and training.
okay.
And then there's 3, 4, 5. Let's just
Okay.
say out of my 28 line items in my operational budget, he cut 21 of those 28
Okay.
line items.
So out of Mayor Clary's proposed cuts, 21 out of 28 line items were cut out of the fire department's budget, which represents 62% of his proposed cuts. The fire department wasn't the only budget the mayor targeted.
Okay. All right. Chief Bush, I appreciate it. I just got one more question. Could I ask Andy Gilly a question.
Sure,
Is he
go
on
ahead.
here?
Go ahead, Alderman Bolt.
Andy, are you on here?
Yes,
I don't
sir.
see. Okay. Yeah, I hate to put you on the spot, but I am on the, the liaison for the Parks Board, and a couple of your Parks Board members sent me emails today relative to some of the cuts. It appears to me it's over 300,000 in cuts to your budget. Is that correct?
That's what the numbers showed.
Is there a
Yes.
couple things on there that you think significantly impact your ability to run the parks the way that you think they should be?
I mean, there's a few things. Number one cut was telephone expense down to a number that will automatically put us over budget before the year even starts. We'll be around 6,000. It was cut to 5,500. Maintenance of parks down to $145,000. I can just tell you before the COVID hit and we stopped spending, we had already spent close to 140,000 in maintenance of parks for this year. And that was at the end of March. That it's just simply an increase in what's going on at the park and number of facilities we're maintaining. The two biggest were assets and special events. Special events on the mayor's proposal was cut down to $25,000. I can just tell you right off the bat, we are contractually obligated for fireworks for the next, not what we just owe for this year, but we're contractually obligated for the next 2 years to $20,000 a year in fireworks. We're also contractually obligated based on a vote of this board for $20,000 to host the TSSAA state tournament for middle school baseball. You all voted $20,000. And I will tell you, if it goes to $25,000, I'm not going to read them to you. I can read them. If they go letter A through P, the number of events that we would not have. Special needs fishing rodeo, preschool track meet, lunch with Santa, Hendersonville hometown jam. We would not be able to support the holiday festival of lights, or the tree lighting, touch a truck, Sumner Teen Center, pigs in the park, movie in the park, Christmas concert that we had planned. We would not be able to offer support for all these World Series events that come into the park when they need us to rent a generator or to buy an LED screen to support something. That's how we get these things to come in here. And I would go so far as to say we have put the freaking city on our back for the last 3 weeks, and you'll see the numbers in the sales tax and the hotel tax over the next 2 months based on us working our rear ends off, opening up the park and filling up the hotels and the restaurants. And if you hear a little emotion in my voice, you can hear it because I'm adamant about it.
Yeah.
Since March, our guys have worked their rear ends off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me, myself.
Yeah.
Alderman Bolt, anything else?
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Andy, because I'm closer to the Parks Board maybe than some of the other, or the Parks Department, some of the others, because I'm the liaison there. And you communicate very well with the public. You communicate very well with the board. You work your butt off. I haven't heard anybody say anything that other than what an outstanding job you've done. You've got great employees. I think we have very good employees. It'd been nice if somebody had sat down and had a conversation with you to see how that might impact you before all these cuts were made. So I'd be a little significantly more comfortable with the amendment that Alderman Cunningham presented, at least based on what I've heard so far. Thank you.
Alderman Bolt, thank you. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to speak long, but I do want to speak on two things, and both of them already been touched on. First of all, I just really don't know. I've been doing budgets a long time. I've been working budgets in this city since 2004. And as much work that was put in on the first reading of the budget from Mr. Lamarb and most everybody on this screen right now, I have no idea how you cut $500,000 out of the fire department unless you just stand back and throw darts at a target. Now, that being said, throwing darts at that target affects ladder testing, which we discussed that in depth in 2018. It affects our physicals for our firemen. And Scotty, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but those have to be done. We just can't skip those.
That's correct. That ladder testing and pump testing all is vital to the protection, the level of protection that we provide to the community. Yes, sir.
You can't do that for $30,000. So that dart didn't hit well, Mayor. That one hit off. So I'll let the fire department go, but I don't know how you cut $500,000 out of that. We'll go to Parks Department for a second. I want to ask one question of Mr. Gilly. All those contractual obligations that you talked about, who signed those contracts?
All
The
of
majority
contract,
of them,
all the contracts have to be approved by Mr. Bradley and then signed by the mayor.
and signed by the mayor. Okay, we're back throwing darts again, trying to make cuts. That's all I want to say. Ms.
Alderman Brown,
Cunningham,
thank,
I'll support your amendment when we get to you.
The alderman continued to express frustration at the irrational cuts proposed by Mayor Clary.
62% of his cuts are in the fire department. 35% of his cuts are in the parks department. I have received emails and phone calls from residents, from department heads, from employees who have pointed out that the things that are right now we're discussing that the mayor has proposed cutting are contractually obligated. In the case of IT, software that we use, that the city uses right now, cutting those fees, which means the employees who are using it right now for existing functions won't have that anymore. We're cuts to unemployment insurance and FICA, and I don't know. I really don't know. It's troublesome because so much of this could be avoided by having conversations with these department heads. I believe that what has been presented to us is designed in such a way, drastic cuts to public safety, cuts to required and contracted expenses, basing it on last year's budget and not this year's budget, is being presented in such a way that we can really do nothing more than reject this. So tomorrow there could be a Facebook post that most of us and a lot of Hendersonville can't see, or a news report, or whatever, raking us over the coals because we have a general fund balance that's a little over $3 million instead of a little under $4 million. And because we're spending just a little bit less on paving than what this amendment is. I think that's what it is. I think we just need to go ahead and vote on this amendment, recognize it for what it is, that it really is just something that's more about running a campaign than running a city, and move on and vote on what Mrs. Cunningham has put together, has researched, and can articulate so well. Thank you.
It's total shock and disbelief.
Even though Alderman Brown mentioned it, I filibustered in 2018 about fire ladder testing. This is an OSHA violation. The city will be fined. Our ISO ratings will go down. I don't understand how you can broad brush out close to $600,000, not out of only the fire department, but out of the police department. I wish it had been brought up sooner, but I will not support that. I'm not aware of anybody on this board that would support that. It doesn't make sense. Not in the middle of a pandemic, not in the middle of what's going on in our society.
Finally, the interim city administrator is asked what the differences are between what the finance committee, department heads, director of finance, and what he developed, and Mayor Clary's proposed cuts.
City Administrator Lamar, do you have any questions or statements regarding the budget process, anything brought forward tonight? I'd like to have your opinions and suggestions. Thank you.
I will give you the breakdown of the differences in the two budgets. Okay, so if you're going to listen carefully, the difference in the mayor's budget and the difference in Alderman Cunningham's budget is 894,000, which is 3.1, 3.9. Okay, here's the difference. Where he got his 900,000, executive branch went up 115,000. Human resources went down 14,400, cut. Central administration cut 7,300. Central services cut 6,000. Finance and administration cut 1,900. Parks and recreation cut 309,000. IT department cut 84,400. Codes and permits cut 8,700. Planning cut 164,500. Public Works added 220,500. Police cut 83,500. Fire cut 550,200. Total cuts 894,300. So if you want to know what the difference in the mayor's budget and the difference in my team's budget worked on for the last 3.5 months, there's the breakdown. Okay. Also, there was no input from the department heads on this $894,300 cuts made the last 24 hours. Thank you very much.
Alderman Vitelli lays it on the line.
I just can't believe that we're having the discussion again about some of these items. There's no way in this world that I will support your amendment. I will not trade firemen's lungs for paving. That is not going to happen. And I cannot imagine anybody on this board that would support this. I'm not going to trade $85,000 or $83,000 for the police department when these two departments have worked tirelessly for months to trim themselves bare bones.
The board now gets to the point of voting on the proposed cuts by Mayor Clary.
So now we need to vote on the amendment. The amendment is what I provided you by email last night. So all those in favor of that amendment, please signify by saying aye, and those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Woodcock,
No.
Waters,
No.
Sprouse,
No.
Skidmore,
No.
Robertson,
No.
Petrelli,
No.
Hayes,
No.
Edwards,
No.
Cunningham,
No.
Campbell,
No.
Brown,
No.
Vogt,
No.
Clary.
Aye.
12,
So
One-
that,
one aye, 12 nays.
thank you. I understand what you meant.
That was a vote of 12-1. No gang of 7. Just 12 aldermen who recognized a mayor targeting two departments' budgets ran by people he dislikes. He retaliates against his perceived enemies, with no regard to those he is putting in harm's way. Is that really what Hendersonville needs in a mayor?